I want to try and experiment with the audience. I want everyone here to close their eyes and I want you to picture a person. This person happens to be a gang member, a straight up thug on the streets. I want you to picture this person with as much detail as possible. What they look like, what they sound like, what they have on them, what are they wearing. Now I want you to picture a dapper businessman. What do they look like? What are they wearing? How many of you thought of a black man in his 20s with lots of tattoos and a deep raspy voice for the gangster? And a white man in his 30s with a suit for the businessman? That, ladies and gentlemen, is a stereotype. Everyone has this preconception of a person when they first meet them. It's how humans work. Sometimes you're aware of this happening. Sometimes it's subconscious. And sometimes it's the gut feeling that you have that's telling you that something doesn't feel right. But it's when you act on these preconceived notions and when you bring these ideas to life when it becomes a problem. When you don't give someone a job because they wear a hijab and you think they're going to bomb the place. Or when you take your kids out of the park because there's a black man sitting by a tree. This is when judging someone is not okay. Before you fully understand what I'm about to express to the audience, let us first simplify and define stereotyping. Harvard University stated that a stereotype is a widely held but fixed simplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. An example of this would be Lakers fans are bandwagons. That's true. Now time for a real example. Eric Erickson, a world-renowned psychoanalyst and Pulitzer Prize winner with multiple awards in his profession, stated that he was the first to propose that children are not simply biological organisms, but also a product of society's expectations, prejudice, and prohibitions. The simple version of this is, from birth to adulthood, stereotypes are slowly developed from teachings and experiences that often lead to higher or lower expectations and prejudice. This problem is molded into our DNA. It is instilled in us through our upbringing. So now let me address the problems that are happening in the world. And then I will show you the domino effect that these stereotypes have on someone and where it lands them in life. Penthouses or penitentiaries. And finally, I will try to explain to you all that words can hurt, but actions are permanent. And some of these actions go undetected in the brain, unnoticed, untouched. We don't even know what's happening until it is. And we don't know how to stop it, so we play along. Our brain is one of the most complex things on the planet. Scientists are still trying to figure out why 60% of Americans love One Direction. I know, it's crazy up there. However, the brain is one of the most organized and simple organs in the body. From every section to every neuron firing off in our brain has a purpose. The frontal lobe for thinking, behavior, movement, and memory. The temporal lobe for hearing, learning, and feelings. The brainstem for breathing and temperature. Cerebellum for balance and coordination. Occipital for sight and perineal for touch and language. The brain loves everything tidy and organized. So we put everything into categories. From likes to dislikes, to who's funny to who's nice. Everything and everyone gets put into their own spot. That is where stereotypes come into play. The brain subconsciously and consciously tries to act for itself, to organize things in the brain. Have you ever heard someone say, when I first met you, I thought you were? That was their brain trying to put you into this category in their brain based on their past experiences and how you presented yourself. Now, sometimes these stereotypes are good, but unfortunately, most of the time, they happen to be bad. And not only affect the actions of people married to stereotypes, but these people receiving them too. Stereotypes don't start in the workplace, high school, middle school, or even kindergarten. It can happen from the moment a minority comes out of the room. From the moment a minority learns to walk, talk, and eat, they are shown that they are worth less than their white counterparts. Now, I know I'm making some bold statements right now, so allow me to back myself up. Researchers from George Mason University analyzed data capturing 1.8 million hospital births in Florida between 1992 and 2015 for a new study to see that even if infants can face prejudice in the hospital. They found out that when cared for by white physicians, black newborns were 3 times more likely to die in the hospital than white newborns. The researchers found that the disparity dropped significantly when the doctor was black. Although black newborns nonetheless remain more likely to die than white newborns, Can you believe that? A newborn just into this world, not knowing what their own skin color is, are not being cared for properly just because of the stereotypes that come with their skin. Before they get a chance to speak, let alone speak up for themselves, they are 3 times more likely to die because they happen to have a black mom. Now, it doesn't end there either. It carries on with them into school. Applied statistics, social science, and humanities conducted experiments to see if even teachers have a racial biases when grading tests. They have concluded that in 18 mathematical equations, that students' mathematically ability biases against black, Hispanic, female students were revealed, with bias largest against black and Hispanic girls. This shows how stereotypes not only affect minorities' abilities to learn and take tests because they're afraid, or they believe that because they come from a certain culture that they are not allowed to be smart enough, but also that teachers have bias against students of color and gender when grading tests. Now, a student has no control on how a teacher feels when grading. And the fact that in school and out of school, minorities already have to deal with the struggle and discrimination just make it even worse when they get a worse grade that they shouldn't have gotten. These kids of color are taught at a young age that they're not smart enough, or that black or Latino people are supposed to be good at school. And even if they want to be good, they have to deal with the peer pressure of other minority students who have been poisoned with the idea that knowledge is weakness. On top of that, they have to deal with their own subconscious telling them to listen to their peers or their brothers or sisters or parents and see how they may not have succeeded in life and following in their footsteps. Oh, you thought stereotypes and racial bias was over? I thought that too. I thought if someone could just prove to the world that they are not stupid and they are capable of doing anything a white person can do in middle school or high school or college, then they would accept them. But unfortunately, they were wrong. Barnes and colleagues conducted an experiment to see if this so-called stereotype that black people aren't supposed to be smart is carried on into the future. And it shows that in a large cohort of older African American adults found that higher levels of perceived discrimination related to poor cognitive test performance, particularly in episodic memory and perceptual speed. However, after adjusting for depressive symptoms, the strength of a relationship between preconceived discrimination and cognition slightly attenuated. Therefore, it is plausible that chronic stress due to perceived discrimination adversely affects the cognition. Furthermore, individuals who report higher levels of perceived discrimination may be vulnerable to the effects of stereotype threat when they are required to perform. This study basically shows that racial discrimination has an adverse effect on test scores and performance. So students not only try not to do hard work in school, work or etc. because they want to fit in with their gangster dads or their criminal brothers or their fast moms. With the racial discrimination, they get along with stereotypes, and low expectations subconsciously lowers their performance as a whole. When they are a child and adult, these stereotypes carry on with these minorities from birth till death. But for minorities, death may come a little faster than anyone else. Why? Because, well, for some minorities, their lives were over before they even started. Moms didn't have enough money for their children. Dads were nowhere to be found, living in horrible conditions, no healthy food, liquor stores on every corner.